Hello artists, welcome to Watercolor Level E. Let's get started. In my sketchbook, I have an experimentation page open. Of course, I have my name on it, and then watercolor, and I'm at level E right now. You are going to want to put a number 1 and then draw a line and put a number 2. Let's see what we're doing today. In level E, it says here, whoa, that's really blurry. Okay, there it goes. It says, I can mix paint tints where I can see the color and white in the mix. I can mix paint tones where I can see the color and gray in the mix. I can mix paint shades where I can see the color and black in the mix. I can plan my painting, layer paint. I can paint background to foreground, tints and lights to shades and darks. Okay, that sounds like a lot, but let's see what this might look like. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about what a tint, a tone, and a shade is. A tint is where I add any color to white. First off, we have our level E bucket here. We can see we have lots of different kinds of paint brushes. We have some white paper in there. And then we're going to need a water cup and a paper towel. And then you guys get these really awesome, beautiful watercolor paints. I've already mixed some paint in here, so this is where I'm going to be mixing paint. But you're going to notice that it goes from light all the way over here to this lime green. You can't see it very well in the camera. There it is. And then all the way down to the black. So lights and then darks. I can follow the line. All right. These are just like any other water palette you've used. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mix my tint. So a tint is any color and white. Here's what that is going to look like. I'm going to activate my watercolors. I think I'm going to use some red here. I can use any color I want. And then I'm going to go ahead and put that red in a tiny little circle. I don't need very much for now. So I'm going to just put in a tiny little circle. I'm going to wash out my cup here and then get the extra water off. I'm going to now get my white here. You can tell my white here is a little goopy. I've been using it, so I'm just going to nicely get some out. I don't have to activate it. All right, once I have the white, I'm not going to put it right in the red. I want to control how much white I'm putting in. I want to put it off to the side, and then I can add little bits in. So I have just a little bit on my brush now because I've put most of it off to the side here in a small little circle, and now I can go ahead and add small little bits. There, that's all I needed, just the small little bit of white. I have now just made pink. Pink is a tint of red. Now I'm going to take that, I'm going to go ahead and paint that in my sketchbook here. It's kind of light because it's watercolor, it's being opaque. That means I can see through it. And then I would go ahead and label that tint. All right, a tone is where I add gray to any color. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get my water brush ready to go. I'm actually going to do yellow this time. So I'm going to activate my yellow, and I'm going to get some more yellow and put it onto my mixing tray, my mixing palette here, till I feel like I have enough. Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and wash out my brush. I'm going to grab some white here. When I'm making gray, I need white and black. So I actually need more white than I do black. So I'm going to add quite a bit of white onto this side, just up here. And then the last color I need, like I said, is black. Now I want to be careful on how much black I add at a time. Black is one of those colors that a little bit goes a really long way. So I'm actually only just going to grab just a tiny little bit. And then so that I don't make my yellow too dark too quick, I need to make sure I wash out my water brush. I need to make sure I wash out my brush. And I'm actually going to go ahead and dry it on the side here so that my colors stay nice and bright instead of becoming really washy and opaque like that one did. I'm going to take just a tinge of my white, black, little bitty bit, put it inside my white. I can always go back and grab some more just by kind of scooping it and kind of putting it over here. There. Now I have some gray. From here, now I can take my gray and I can add it into my yellow. I can go back and forth. I can kind of grab it here off the side and go back and forth. When I'm mixing it, I'm trying to keep a nice tight circle. I'm not trying to spread it everywhere. So I feel like I'm now getting a very grayed out yellow, so now I can go ahead and put that on my paper. I'm going to paint a swatch of tone. All right, then I would label that and make sure I put a tone. Now for a shade. Shade is any color mixed with black. So I'm going to take this blue here, and I'm going to put it, I'm running out of room here that you can see. Let's see if we can squish you guys down. There you go. I'm going to put my blue right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab just a little bit of black. Remember, a little bit of black goes a long way. I don't need very much. I'm actually just going to put just a little bit. I'm going to wash this out so it doesn't go too dark too quick. Dry it off. I don't want a bunch of extra water in my paint if I want to keep my colors nice and crisp. Grab that little bit of black here, and I'm going to add it just right into my blue. You're going to notice I can always add more. It's hard to take away. It's hard to take away. There we go. That's starting to look pretty good. And then I'm going to go ahead and add it to my paper and label it. All right. For step 2, what you're going to do is you are going to draw out your mini artwork. You're going to need 3 parts. You are going to need a background, middle ground, and foreground. The background here is the sky and the mountains in the back. The middle ground in this image is the road that kind of gets smaller as it's going back, and then the tree. And then the foreground, or the stuff in the very front, is my little cartoon character and the road that's right here. All right, once I have that completely drawn out, I'm going to set my sketchbook over to the side here and get it out of the way. Then I'm going to go ahead and plan it in my sketchbook, and then I'm going to draw it out on the white pieces of paper that I found in the bucket. This artwork will take you a couple days to do. When I'm painting, I've kind of started this one a little bit, but when I'm painting, I want to make sure that I'm painting light to dark and painting my tones and tints and shades where I see them. As I get farther away, things might be darker, but I'm going to start in the background here. I want to paint my lights first and then my darks just in my background. So I started by painting my sky, which I took some blue and some white to make a tone, a sky blue. And then I had to wait for that to dry. Then I could paint my mountains, which is just some gray. Remember when I paint with watercolors, I have to make sure that I'm waiting for the layers to dry. Otherwise, they're going to go together. They're going to bleed together, and I don't want that. Once my mountains were all dried, then I could start painting my boats. Now, I painted around the sail so that I could add in the lightest color to the boat first. Lightest color was orange, then some red. Then I wait for these to completely dry before I added in the brown. While I was waiting for these to completely dry, I actually went ahead and started painting the very back of the blue here, the back of the blue ocean, which, because it's farther away from me, I did a shade of blue, and I started painting it darker. Then once my area of this blue is dried, the darker color from blue is brown, so I've gone ahead and added some brown in. I want to make sure when I'm painting, I'm getting lighter as I come forward, because things closer to me have lighter colors. I can see the colors a little better. So I'm using some of this darker blue still. I'm going around my boat here. My boat's kind of dry. I kind of did the boat part just a little out of order so I could show you for movie making purposes. And then I would just kind of keep going. As I'm getting closer here though, as I start to get really close, I'm going to need to be careful about my snake that's in the water. My snake is going to be a green. On my palette, the green comes before the blue, so that means green is lighter than blue. So I'm going to need to be careful how much blue I paint at one time, because I always paint lighters and then darkers. So I'm actually going to go ahead and grab some of my lime green that I really want to use for my snake. And before this gets, before I start painting right next to it, I'm going to go ahead and get him started going here. And I'm going to paint him. I want to make sure that when I'm painting him, he is, or before I go back to my ocean, I want to make sure that my snake is completely dry. So I might need to leave this on the drying rack for the next art time. So I would kind of keep working my way top to bottom. So now that I have a little bit of my snake painted here, I'm going to do one more little section here, and then I'm going to show you kind of how to move on to the blue part and how to transition that from dark blue to light blue, because I want my blue to be a little lighter as I come forward. All right. Drying off my brush here. As I start to go here, I'm going to go from the dark blue to the light, or to just a regular blue. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some blue here, and I'm going to get a little water because I want it to be a little watered down when I go to do it. And I'm just going to paint right on top, kind of by it. And I'm going to show you how to blend these colors together so you get a nice transition. So now that I have a lot of this blue down, I can take just some water. Or if I have extra dark blue left, then I can go ahead and take that. I'm going to paint right by where the dark blue was into the blue while it is wet. I need to make this transition while it's wet. If it's completely dry and I notice it later, I can reactivate my watercolors by just getting them a little wet again with my brush. But I'm just going to kind of paint over and over it again, very lightly so I don't ruin my paper. We're using nice watercolor paper here, so that the colors kind of blend together to get a nice transition. Once I've kind of gotten that, and then my ocean is kind of dry here, then I would go back in and I could add in like the details. Like my deck is completely dry right now. I could go back in. I'm going to add some details in here, some wood planks with a nice light brush. The very last thing that I would actually paint on this image is his eyes. I would paint his eyes, the pupils of his eyes, the very last thing, because they would be black, and so they would be the darkest thing on my image. Once I'm done with my painting, I'm going to want to make sure to tape it inside my sketchbook and then put it on the drying rack. And then I wanted to show you how to go about cleaning up your watercolor palette, since these are a little different and you have been mixing these. When I go to clean this up, I'm actually going to take a damp paper towel, and I'm going to, because it's already wet there, I'm going to just wipe it up with my damp paper towel. I'm just going to wipe it up just like that instead of running it under the water, because if I run it under the water, then it will get these paints all kinds of messy. So I'm going to clean this up by just wiping it out with a damp paper towel. If it gets really dirty like that, just move it to a new section. Happy creating!